Scott King Book Awards are given annually to outstanding African American authors and illustrators of books for children and young adults, which demonstrate an appreciation of African American culture and universal human values. Today, I'm going to be talking to you specifically about the Coretta Scott King Author Award. In 1969, librarians Glendon Greer and Mabel McKissick were attending the annual ALA conference in Atlantic City, New Jersey. While they were walking through the exhibit hall, they stopped by a booth where a poster of the late Martin Luther King Jr. was on a display. This ended up sparking a conversation that evolved into the observation that not since the invention of the Newbery Medal in 1922 or the Caldecott Medal in 1938 had any award committee recognized the work of a person of color. John Carroll, who is a publisher from a small company in New York, happened to overhear their conversation and just said, "Hey, why don't you ladies establish your own award then?" This is where the seed was planted, and it was here that the idea of an award for African American authors and illustrators was born. The first award was given to Lily Patterson, a school librarian, for her elementary level biography, Martin Luther King Jr., Man of Peace, which is pretty fitting for the first award. In 1974, an illustrator award was added, and George Ford became the first illustrator to receive the award for Ray Charles, his biography of Ray Charles, which I'm sure someone else will tell you all about in another presentation. Starting in 1978, they began recognizing runner-ups as honor books, and then in 1981, illustrator runner-ups were recognized as honor books. In 1979, the Coretta Scott King Task Force was formed, which became part of ALA's Social Responsibilities Roundtable. And then finally, in 1982, formal selection criteria was written to meet ALA standards, and the Coretta Scott King Book Awards became an officially recognized award. So here's some of that criteria as laid out by the ALA. You have your basic things like must be published in the U.S. in the year preceding the presentation of the award, must be an original work. Things that are more specific to this award is that it must portray some aspect of the Black experience, past, present, or future, must be written or illustrated by an African American. It needs to meet established standards of quality for writing for youth, which are a clear plot, well-drawn characters who portray growth and development, a writing style which is consistent with and suitable to the age intended, accuracy in its information, and then last but not least, needs to be written for one of three categories: preschool through 4th grade, 5th through 8th grade, or 9th through 12th grade. Particular attention will be paid to titles which seek to motivate readers to develop their own attitudes and behaviors, as well as comprehend their personal duty and responsibility as citizens in a pluralistic society. The Coretta Scott King Book Awards Committee is part of the ALA Ethnic and Multicultural Information Exchange Roundtable. Say that 3 times fast. The awards jury consists of 7 members that serve staggered terms to ensure continuity. 3 end up being appointed by the committee during the odd years, and then 4 are elected by the committee during the even years, which each juror is serving a 2-year term. So all the Coretta Scott King Award winners, including the author winner, are awarded annually at ALA's Midwinter Conference as part of the Youth Media Awards. Winning books receive a medal, and honor books receive a certificate. Winning and honor books both are identified by seals on their covers: bronze for winners and pewter for honors. In later versions and the current version, they've changed it to black and bronze for winners and black and pewter for runners-up or for honors. Since 1972, the beginning of the award, the recipients have been honored at a celebratory breakfast during the ALA annual conference. I read the last 3 consecutive author award winners, and I'm going to present each one of them, and I want to particularly focus on how each award winner portrays the Black experience, as well as how each title circles back to that, and pays particular attention to the quote I mentioned earlier, how they'll demonstrate to seek to motivate readers to develop their own attitudes and behaviors, as well as comprehend their personal duty and responsibility as citizens in a pluralistic society. So the 2020 Coretta Scott King Award winner is New Kid by Jay Kraft. A little summary here. Jordan Banks is starting 7th grade this year and loves nothing more than drawing comics about his life, but instead of sending him to the art school of his dreams, his parents enroll him in a prestigious private school, which is more known for his academics, where Jordan is one of the few kids of color in his entire grade. Diversity is low, and the struggle to fit in is real. New Kid portrays many aspects of the Black experience, and the most prominent being the casual racism that Jordan experiences in his new school via microaggressions. Some examples of that are the school librarian recommending a book about life on the streets, and his teacher confusing him and as the other person of color in his class, as well as not getting his name right. It's just lots of microaggressions from that teacher that Jordan has to deal with. The graphic novel, interspersed with Jordan's own actual drawn panels, as well as the humorous take, make this book highly accessible to middle school students who might not understand the oftentimes complicated concepts of microaggression and code switching. So I'm going to move on to the 2019 Coretta Scott King Award winner, which is A Few Red Drops by Claire Hatfield. A Few Red Drops is a sweeping account of the 1919 Chicago race riots, which began on a hot summer day on the beach where Eugene Williams, an African American teenage boy, was struck and killed after a white man threw a stone at his head. His death was a catalyst for 7 days and 7 nights of violence in the city of Chicago. But instead of focusing on this violence, the book examines the tensions that had been building between the races in Chicago, which stemmed from the huge influx of Southern blacks coming north, and which is in what is often termed as a Great Migration, while at the same time immigrants from Europe were flooding into the city, and both groups were competing for jobs, housing, etc. The popular narrative at the time was that the North was more progressive, but A Few Red Drops lays out the discrimination and violence was pervasive even in the quote Great North at this time. The book has excellent photos, documents, reproductions of newspaper articles, super good source notes, a really comprehensive index. All in all, an excellent nonfiction book for middle grades. The Black experience that's demonstrated here is clearly the historical perspective. It really gives a context for what happened in the past and compares it to what is happening now, not explicitly but implicitly. The author was inspired to write this book after hearing her grandmother's story about riding home on a streetcar during the riots. I'm going to read a quote from Claire Hartfield. So she told me this story when I was young, and it got buried in the back of my mind as many memories do. But a few years ago, as I would see on my TV screen, all of these new instances across the country where people were taking to the streets in protest. And I remember the story my grandmother had told me, and I thought, wow, this is nearly 100 years ago. And I wanted to know more about what caused that situation and how it was the same and how it was different from what we're experiencing today. So this book, I think, can really help students connect the past and present. And really, we can all become better citizens when we're informed and we can look at the mistakes of the past and see what happened and hopefully make changes so things like this don't happen in the future. So the 2018 Coretta Scott King Award winner is my favorite of the three. It is called Piecing Me Together by Renee Watson. It's about Jade, who's a 16-year-old African-American girl attending a prestigious, mostly white private school in Portland. She's super ambitious and driven. She's a talented artist, and she's really hoping that her love and skill with the Spanish language will get her into the school study abroad program. But instead, Jade is chosen for a mentorship program called Women to Women, where she's paired with Maxine, an affluent black woman. So Jade's like, no way at first, but she can't deny the promise of a full scholarship at the end of the program. Throughout the school year, Jade really struggles to understand her place in the world, pushing back against the casual racism at her school and the casual racism of her mentor. This book really encompasses those big themes of the Black experience, race, identity, just because Jade doesn't have a lot of money. and she's black and she comes from a poor neighborhood. Everyone wants to fix what's quote unquote wrong with her, but the truth is there's nothing wrong with her. She's a really good student, she's a really talented artist, and what I think this book does best is that it highlights the racism and identity within the black community. Just because her mentor is black doesn't mean she understands Jade, and a lot of assumptions are being made here, where Jade feels like it's her job to keep breaking down the stereotypes that follow her throughout the book. All three of these books are engaging and incredibly well written. They highlight different aspects of the Black experience, and after reading and reviewing them all, it's clear to see why they won the Coretta Scott King Author Award. Now, do you have any predictions for next year?